Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.
It's the beginning of another week. Hello, good evening, welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from Usabata Desawe Kanda, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Ocansey. Tonight, the Office of the Special Prosecutor redeclares former Finance Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta a wanted person and a fugitive from justice. We'll tell you why. There's more on this. Stay with us here on Ghana Tonight, because it's a security side of things as well we're going to be delving into. Also, the special prosecutor still staying on him is pursuing some officials and former officials of the National Petroleum Authority in what it says is a 280.5 million cedis corrupt scheme. Stay with us. We've got details for you. And good news for the Ashanti Regional Chair of the New Patriotic Party, Bernard Ntwi-Boesiakon, also known as Chairman Wontumi, as he gains his freedom temporarily from the custody of the Economic and Organized Crime Office. We'll tell you how and who played a role in this. And this happened just a little over an hour ago at the Yoko office. Stay with us. We've got updates for you. As always, you're an integral part of the conversation. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
Embattled Ashanti Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Bernard Ntwi-Boesiakon, alias Chairman Wontumi, has walked out of the premises of the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, after finally meeting his bail conditions. This was disclosed by his lawyer, Andy Apiakubi, on the evening of Monday, June 2. Chairman Wontumi was granted bail to the tune of 50 million Ghana cedis, with 2 sureties to be justified following his arrest on Tuesday, May 27. He has, however, remained in custody due to his failure to meet the bail conditions. Former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is a wanted man again. This comes after his failure to attend upon an invitation by the Office of the Special Prosecutor to answer questions in some 5 corruption-related matters. The OSP says it is taking all actions to have the once powerful minister returned to the jurisdiction.
The OSP redeclares that Mr. Ofori-Atta is a wanted person and a fugitive from justice. His name is hereby re-entered on the OSP's list of wanted persons. The OSP will take all necessary legal steps to secure Mr. Ofori-Atta's return to the jurisdiction and to answer to the criminal inquiries against him. In pursuance of this, about 30 minutes before this briefing, I triggered processes for the issuance of an Interpol Red Notice for the location and provisional arrest of Mr. Kenneth Nanaya Ofori-Atta in whichever jurisdiction pending extradition or his surrender.
President John Dramani Mahama has expressed confidence in the Asantehene Otumfuo Seitu II in his mediation efforts at ending the long-standing Boko conflict. Speaking during a courtesy call on the president by chiefs and elders of the Ashanti Kingdom, the president is hopeful the conflict will see a resolution soon for lasting peace to return to Boko.
Through your steady hand and moral authority as chair of the Committee of Eminent Chiefs, you led Dagbon from years of painful division into an era of reconciliation and renewed leadership. Once again, at a critical time of our nation's history, you've stepped forward to assist our nation in another moment of great need. Your Majesty's ongoing efforts to mediate the Boko conflict, though complex and challenging, offer our country a renewed sense of hope. Through quiet diplomacy and cultural sensitivity and unwavering resolve, you are helping to pave the way towards enduring peace in one of the most fragile areas of our republic.
The Ministry of Health has reiterated its appeal to the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association to rescind its decision to proceed on the industrial action. To minimize the effect of the strike by the nurses, the ministry has directed all heads of the various units to ensure that continuous healthcare services, including maternity and emergency care, are available. Tony Goodman is the spokesperson for the ministry.
The Honorable Minister for Health is saying that I cannot sign a document I wasn't part of. I don't know the content. Our mandate is to provide quality healthcare to the people of this country. What do? We have to go to the aid of the patients. For these reasons, what we have done is to lay down some directive for various managers to undertake.
For the 7th consecutive time, fuel prices at the pumps have been reduced nationwide, offering some relief to motorists and businesses. However, fresh concerns are emerging from consumer advocacy group, including the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers (COPEC), over what they describe as insufficient price cuts, especially in light of the cedi's continued appreciation against the dollar. Executive Secretary of COPEC, Duncan Amwa, believes the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies are not passing on the full benefit of the cedi's strength.
Unfortunately, it is woefully inadequate. If you look at some of the major oil marketing companies, I say this on the back of the fact that we knew this was going to go down. We expected it to go down by a certain margin. Unfortunately, what we are getting is some appeasement, one that suggests we will give you some reduction, but you won't get what you deserve.
It's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live as well on 3FM 92.7. Also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279 and all across the world on 3news.com. As always, proudly brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, and Sasso Insecticide Spray and Coil, Tum Precom. Coming up next here on Ghana Tonight, the big issue and the big conversation we've been having for some time now. The special prosecutor has redeclared former Finance Minister Kenneth Kuntunkurunku Oforiatta a wanted person and a fugitive from justice. We'll tell you why. There's more on this, and stay with us, because earlier today, the special prosecutor, as was earlier advertised, addressed the press in a number of things. He touched on 4 issues. Well, we'll start off with the former Finance Minister. He's a wanted man again. That is after his failure to attend upon an invitation by the Office of the Special Prosecutor to answer questions in some 5 corruption-related matters. We'll show that to you. We'll recall those 5 corruption-related matters and put the issues in context tonight. The OSP is saying it is taking all actions to have the once powerful minister return to the jurisdiction. Here's the Special Prosecutor, Kisi Jabeng, addressing the press earlier today. Take a look.
The OSP redeclares that Mr. Oforiatta is a wanted person and a fugitive from justice. His name is hereby re-entered on the OSP's list of wanted persons. The OSP will take all necessary legal steps to secure Mr. Oforiatta's return to the jurisdiction and to answer to the criminal inquiries against him. In pursuance of this, about 30 minutes before this briefing, I triggered processes for the issuance of an Interpol red notice for the location and provisional arrest of Mr. Kenneth Nanaya Oforiatta in whichever jurisdiction pending extradition or his surrender. Around the same time, I dispatched a request for extradition processes to be instituted for the provisional apprehension in any jurisdiction in which Mr. Ofori-Atta may be located or found, and his extradition to the Republic of Ghana.
Now, let's stay a bit further with the special prosecutor, because he explained how he arrived at this decision to redeclare Ken Ofori-Atta as a wanted man and fugitive from justice, and then also the Interpol red alert that has been triggered just 30 minutes before that arrest that they addressed around 5 p.m. earlier today, as he indicated. Take a look.
From 20 to 21 March, when he said he was going to have the possible medical intervention, surgical intervention, upon which reckoning we indulgently said, oh, take some of the days, recuperate. So he suggested he will come between 14 to 30 May. We said, oh, take a few more days, come on 2nd June. How friendly can we be beyond this? After accommodating you, you sat by for at least 67 days when you knew your condition had changed, and you never bothered to tell the OSP that there's been a fundamental change in your condition. You're acting in bad faith, utter bad faith, and for which reason we have stopped this party.
Well, so that's a special prosecutor there. Today we got to know as well a bit more detail about the health condition of the former finance minister. According to the special prosecutor, he's been diagnosed with cancer. We'll get into the details of that shortly. But then again, also the special prosecutor, Kisi Jaben, explained why Ken Ofori-Atta is needed physically to present himself. He was supposed to do that as at 1:30 p.m. today. He didn't do it. A question was asked that his lawyers wrote to the special prosecutor indicating the readiness of Ken Ofori-Atta to avail himself virtually to engage in a virtual interview or interrogation by the special prosecutor's office. But the special prosecutor says, no, that's not for Ken Ofori-Atta to, as it were, suggest. So why is he needed physically and not that virtual option that his lawyers proposed in the said letter to the special prosecutor on the 28th of May? This is the special prosecutor's response to that. Take a look.
What will his presence do? Now, as I said, in due course, we'll charge him, whether in absentia or otherwise. Imagine we charge him in absentia and we get a conviction against him. Who are we imprisoning or who are we fining? Sir, to get a simple mathematics of it. As I said in my brief, a suspect in a criminal matter does not choose how the investigative authority should go about investigating him. When he wants to appear, when he decides to appear, in what way he wants to appear. We do not take caution statements online from a foreign jurisdiction. And who says, I even want to take a caution statement from him? He is the one who is dictating, he wants to dictate the process. You get it? And we have always insisted from the onset that we want him here. Legally, I will say that to you. But there's a far more grave reason why we need him here. And since the investigation is still going on, it will be rounded up soon. I will not be able to disclose to you. But as I said, that possibility, if we take him to court, if he is convicted, if he is sentenced to some number of days, months, years in prison, in absentia, what would we have done if we didn't to bring him here? Mind you, this office investigated a former president. The former president was served at the time with the same kind of directive to appear before the OSP. We didn't have to be chasing the former president around the world. How much less a former minister of finance? What is so special about Mr. Ofori-Atta that he thinks he's unique and should be treated like a king?
So the special prosecutor, Kisi Jaben, tough talking today and clearly indicating what he intends to do going forward. But then again, let's go back a bit, backtrack and recall the issues and chronicle the specific dates that the special prosecutor himself did indicate during the press conference today. Dennis Baberi Wadam Esquire is with me. We've been following this case quite closely. Dennis, good to have you as always.
Good to have you back.
Indeed, it's good to be back. As always. Well, let's recall this, right?
Well, you just came in big. I mean, big news coming in at the time.
Indeed.
Are you able to catch up? Or I should take you along?
A lot has been happening.
A lot has been happening. Too much.
Too much.
Let me take you along.
Indeed.
But even before we get into the timelines and all that, let's understand what exactly or why exactly the Office of the Special Prosecutor needs the former finance minister. He says there are specific allegations that he wants the former finance minister to respond to, and these are matters that relate to petroleum and mineral revenue assurance. This has to do with the SML deal, which had become very controversial. He says he wants the former finance minister to respond to matters in relation to that. There's also an issue of the Electricity Company of Ghana contract termination. This is also another matter for which the OSP is on the heels of the former finance minister. And then the big one, the National Cathedral project, a very controversial project, one that has been captured under the NDC manifesto. Even before this whole pursuit of the OSP came into the picture, there's also been conversation that there's going to be a re-audit, there's going to be an investigation into the project. So the finance minister is wanted to answer to questions in relation to that particular project. There's also a matter of the ambulance procurement. Now recall that when the MPP came into government, they procured some ambulances for almost all districts in the country. Now that has also become an issue for which the OSP wants to look into some matters of how they were procured and how some contracts were awarded for their servicing and the like. So that is also a matter that the former finance minister is needed to answer. There's also a matter that has to do with GRA tax, P-fund management, also another big issue that the OSP wants the former finance minister to answer to. So 5 key things for which the former finance minister is wanted. And OSP says that he wants him in person to answer in respect of this. You heard me explain why it is important for him to appear in person, and the reason for which he declined that request by lawyers of the OSP to have a virtual conference so that he could take his caution statement and all that.
Absolutely.
We'll go into that a bit more, but let's begin to understand where this whole engagement started and how we actually got to where we are today, because it didn't just start today. Knowing that he was the finance minister, and even though he was going out of office, on January 2, this by then, the Akufo-Addo government had lost power. They were almost on their way out. But there were still those who were managing the affairs of the country. Then Finance Minister wrote to the former Chief of Staff, Ms. Akosua-Frema Opare, to seek medical attention abroad. I mean, that is standard practice for government officials at the time who wanted to leave the shores of the country. Now, fast forward to January 2022, there had been a change in government, but all the same, the finance minister thought it necessary to write to the current chief of staff, Julius Zebra, also informing him of his absence. The reason for this information was to the effect that, yes, he had held key position in government, and if it became necessary that he be needed for anything, he could be contacted. He gave details, and that was a letter that he had written.
Right.
Also in the same month, 24th of January 2025, now, Special Prosecutor writes to Ken Ofori-Atta asking him to attend an interview on February 10. And that was supposed to be held at the OSP's office. And that he was a suspect in respect of 4 corruption and corruption-related offenses. At the time, there were 4. Now we are learning there are 5. Fast forward, January 31, 2025, Ken Ofori-Atta's lawyers wrote to the OSP about his absence, because obviously, like I mentioned to you, he had written earlier to say that he was leaving the shores of the country. So the lawyers informed OSP about his absence, and then that his lawyers were available to assist with whatever information that the OSP may require in respect of those corruption and corruption-related issues that had been raised. 5th February 2025, now OSP insisted that Ken Ofori-Atta's lawyers should indicate by close of 10th February, the day he had requested for the meeting, when he will be available in person for that interview, because it didn't seem like the OSP was enthused about engaging the lawyers. He wanted Ken Ofori-Atta himself.
Exactly.
And that failure of which the OSP would take the steps to secure his return to the country. So even as far back as February 10, the OSP was giving signals that he wanted Ken himself in the country, and he wanted to have the interview with him, not with the lawyers, in person. Now, February 7, 2 days after, lawyers of Ken Ofori-Atta wrote again to the OSP suggesting a possible in-person interview after March. And at this point, they were explaining to the OSP that he was due for some medical procedures which were going to happen in March.
Yeah.
So he was only going to be available after March. This was when they proposed March 20, March 21 as the date for the surgery.
Yeah,
the OSP will start to do some calculations, and he will refer to a certain March, 20 and 21. This is what he's talking about.
I see. That there's 67 days afterwards and so on.
Exactly. That's when it became clear to him that this March 2021 surgery was not going to be possible. He should have communicated early enough rather than wait to communicate just a few days ago about his unavailability. Now, February 11, 2025, that was when we got news that Ken Ofori-Atta's house was raided by people who were suspected to be operatives of the national security. Indeed, that was confirmed by the majority leader on the floor of Parliament, even apologizing on behalf of the national security.
Sure.
That indeed happened. So when that happened, the lawyers of Ken Ofori-Atta wrote to ask the special prosecutor if that raid was at his instance. That is to say, if he was the one who sanctioned it. Just before they could get an answer, there was that press conference by the OSP in which the former finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, was declared a wanted person and a fugitive from justice. On the 18th of February 2025, Ken Ofori-Atta's lawyers wrote to the OSP to clarify and reschedule interview with the OSP, and also demanded that Ken Ofori-Atta be taken off the wanted list. At this point, there had also been some legal matters that were coming up. So the OSP, this would see in a subsequent release how they had reached the agreement for him to be taken off the wanted list, and also to have a day that he would appear before the OSP for that interview.
Yeah.
So on February 18, 2025, the OSP in a press statement announced that Ken Ofori-Atta had been removed from the wanted list and that he was no longer a fugitive from justice. And this was when, even though the lawyers had asked for a time after March 20 and 2021, the OSP, as he would later explain, graciously gave a June 2, which is today, for that particular meeting at his office at 2 p.m.
So this June 2 date, which is today,
Yes.
was given as far back as February 8.
Yes. So at this point, that reached that agreement. Now, on March 3, Ken Ofori-Atta's lawyers wrote to the OSP to draw his attention to the fact that even though they had agreed to take his name off the wanted list, there were still some traces posted on their website and their social media handles. So they wanted that to be taken off. They would also take legal action to press home that demand and also seek to injunct the OSP from proceeding on that matter. That is still a matter which is pending before the law courts. But however, before the whole thing came to an end, now to firm up this agreement, this was a statement from the OSP where the OSP had indicated how they have reached an agreement and how the former finance minister's name was taken off the wanted list and what was required of him moving forward.
Right.
And just for purposes of emphasis, let me take it from this part.
Perfect.
Where they said Mr. Ofori-Atta is mandatorily required to appear in person before the OSP on 2nd June 2025. If Mr. Ofori-Atta fails to attend the OSP on the scheduled dates, he shall be re-entered onto the OSP's list of wanted persons, and the OSP shall consider him a fugitive from justice. It continues to say that whereupon the OSP will cause the issuance of an Interpol red notice in his regard, and also cause the initiation of extradition proceedings in any jurisdiction in which he may be found. It ends by saying that the OSP remains, that's a way of ending the letter. This was dated 17th of March 2025. So what's important here is that when you see the list of all these things that the OSP threatened or warned to do, if the former finance minister fails to show up today, are the exact things that he announced today as having been reactivated or redeclared. So for those who have been following the matter, this is not really news, because these were things that the OSP said he was going to do should Ken Ofori-Atta fail to show. Now he tells us that lawyers have written to him on May 28th to indicate that he's not going to be available because he's been diagnosed of cancer. That appears not to be convincing to the OSP, and that explains the reason for which we are where we are now.
I see, but there was a Facebook post by the special prosecutor on the 28th of May indicating that the Human Rights Court had adjourned to 18th June for a ruling on the said motion, the one you referred to, by the former finance minister seeking to restrain him, the special prosecutor, from declaring Ken Ofori-Atta wanted, amongst other reliefs. That particular judgment is on June 18.
Yes.
But then again, the special prosecutor has gone ahead to declare him as a wanted man.
Yes, because
that's just to put it on record.
Yes, so that's what he clearly indicated. And even when he was addressing the press, he in parts even mentioned about the pendency of that particular application and then the processes and how the ruling is going to be on a subsequent date. However, as long as he has still not been restrained, I think he feels that he has every right to continue to do whatever it is that he's doing. In any case, that was in respect of some specific matters that were raised against the OSP
right
then. I don't know if those set of facts still apply to what is happening now. That's a different conversation. But it's important to put on record that matter has still not been determined. It will be determined on June 18. But the OSP has done what he says is the most appropriate thing to do now. He thinks that the former finance minister has acted in bad faith. He thinks that his approach to the law, to the office of the OSP, is one that cannot be countenanced. For the reason for which he took the decision that he took.
And then stay with me. I want you to pull up the wanted notice that the special prosecutor posted on his website just a few minutes after that press conference, a few minutes before the press conference. This wanted notice of Kenneth Fureta was put on the OSP's website. So we'll show that to you. But Martin Pebo is private legal practitioner, is joining us on Zoom right now. Counsel, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. With the chronicling of events and the specific dates that Dennis has just done, corroborating what the OSP said earlier, this outcome of that's Kenneth Fureta being redeclared as a wanted man and a fugitive from justice, some say it's no surprise, is it not?
Yes, it's inevitable because, the Kenneth Fureta's lawyers didn't put up a good showing in terms of marshalling the kind of evidence that is needed to persuade the OSP to grant them an extension. So you can see that OSP complains that what they sent is next to nothing in terms of the evidence that is needed to persuade OSP for an extension of time. So one would have thought that, knowing that the stakes are very high, the Kenneth Fureta's lawyers would have come with a full dossier. You see, along the line, you hear that they're saying they were willing to provide more. Why don't you provide it? Yes, you know that this particular matter is a high-stakes game because, the February 12th or so that he was declared wanted, it took some negotiations, etc., to arrive at the next time for the meeting, which is today, 2nd June 2025. So knowing that there was already a history of Fureta having been declared wanted, the lawyers shouldn't have taken any chances. They should have come fully prepared. They should have sent a full dossier and then made other arrangements for OSP to talk to the doctors or any other form of verifying whatever they presented. But to the extent that all those things were not done, and even the OSP explains that was late, that the lawyer's letter came to OSP on 28th of May, it shows that they don't appear prepared. They don't appear to have done the necessary kind of preparations that is required to get an extension from Mr. Kissie Jabin.
I see.
So naturally, you can't blame Mr. Kissie Jabin for putting Fureta back on the wanted list and now taking steps to extradite him and also taking steps to get him on the Interpol red alert.
I see, but Counsel, we're just learning as well from the special prosecutor today that the former finance minister has once again been declared, as it were, wanted. But then again, the details of his medical condition was updated. Now we're getting to know that he's been diagnosed with cancer. Not much detail was giving us to what stage of the cancer it is. But then again, we know, based on what the special prosecutor said today, that he is expected to undergo some medical procedure sometime on the 16th of June. But taking into consideration this detail and getting to know that, yes, his medical situation has probably changed and now he's been diagnosed with cancer, you say it's not enough to have convinced the special prosecutor to not declare him a wanted man today?
Absolutely, absolutely. They didn't do enough. You see, they didn't do enough. That's why Mr. Jabe asked that, do you know the number of people who walk around with cancer and are managing it? You say, do you know the number of people who walk around with cancer and are managing it? So I'm not a doctor, but from the little we've read around, we have different types of cancer. And even in terms of the potency of it, you hear malignant, yeah, malignant, and then you hear benign, and all those things, and at different terms. So it shows the aggression. All these things you needed to show details, or as you know, God forbid, but is it the aggressive type, the one that Charlie is ravaging, moving very fast, rapidly, causing him harm, and so he needs constant doctor support, etc. Reveal it. I was telling earlier on in in the 7 o'clock news, I was telling your colleagues that OSP knows how to keep these matters confidential. At least I've seen it in court, where lawyers for Patience Butchie sought to get the documents that Cecilia Adapa, the statements, etc., and the FBI information that OSP gathered, FBI gathered on Cecilia Adapa, etc., from the OSP. It was such a battle in court. I mean, even before court, the lawyers wrote to OSP. OSP said, no, we can't release these documents because of confidentiality. Then it went to court. OSP kept battling it back and forth before finally Justice Marie-Louise Simmons ruled in favor of Patience Butchie that the OSP must give the documents to the lawyers to help her prepare her defense. Even with that, they didn't get all. It's not everything that was ordered to be given.
Right.
So the point I'm making is that if the lawyers gave OSP all of Oforiatta's health records, you can trust that they will be kept well. So what is their fear in terms of disclosing to the OSP the medical records?
I see. And Counsel, stay with me. I'm going to come back to you. But then again, Dennis, there was that wanted notice that the special prosecutor put on his website and social media on Ken Oforiatta. What does it say? Because there's some very interesting information in there.
Yes, so you would see it as displayed on the screen here. Wanted by OSP, by Office of the Special Prosecutor. Name, Kenneth Nanayao Oforiatta. Description, you have date of birth, 7th November 1958. Age, 66 years. Gender, male. Eye color, black. Hair color, black. Distinguishing marks, not applicable. Complexion, brown skin. Possible location or locations: United States, United Kingdom, South Africa, Guyana, Hong Kong, Cayman Islands. It continues to describe the reasons for which this wanted notice has been issued. Reasons that this suspect is wanted to answer charges in respect of several cases, including strategic mobilization GRE contract, termination of ECG BXC contract, national cathedral payments, ambulance procurement contract, and tax refund account utilization. It goes on to say that anyone with information on the whereabouts of this individual should alert the office by calling or sending a WhatsApp message to 0554 494499 or 0554 484488. There's a serial number of the warrant that has been issued. And that's what you have.
And then flip back. Let's look at the countries. It says the possible locations of Ken Oforiatta.
Yes.
The United States.
United Kingdom.
The UK, South Africa, Guyana, Hong Kong, and the Cayman Islands. Now, because the special prosecutor has issued an Interpol red alert, what we did was to go on the Interpol website to see if these countries are member states of the Interpol, and whether or not, if they are not, how the search for Ken Oforiatta is going to be outside of that Interpol red alert that has been issued. Here's what we found out. We put it on the screen right now. So for the United States, we know because Ken Oforiatta was earlier reported to have been receiving medical treatment in a hospital in the U.S., is it not?
That's so.
Good. Now, if you look at, this is the Interpol website. The member states, we have South Africa there. We have the UK. We have Guyana, but we don't find Hong Kong and Cayman Islands. as member states of Interpol. So you see Guyana there?
Yes, Guyana is the G
column.
The H.
And then there's no Hong Kong in H in there. And then also for South Africa, we see in the S column there as well, and the United States and UK there. This is where we bring in a security consultant, the former NIB, BNI official, and that's Richard Kumado is joining us. Mr. Kumado, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I mean, looking at the locations that the special prosecutor has just provided, possible locations of Ken Ofori-Atta, these countries as listed. How does all of that strike you?
These are protocols investigation agencies have at their disposal to trigger, particularly when the key suspects or the culprits in a particular crime have jumped ship. So I wasn't surprised at all if you look at the discussions and the exchanges that took place between the special prosecutor and the office of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta right from January 2nd to where we are. I knew it was going to get to this stage. What people would have asked is what took him so long. But from the explanations right from January to where we are, you can understand the various options at his disposal and why he decided to trigger the red alert as at this stage. What he did was not just a red alert, but he added almost every descriptive nature of our uncle Ken Ofori-Atta. That makes it easier for people who might not know him to be able to get to him when it becomes necessary.
I see, but we know that prior to today, we know Ken Ofori-Atta was reported to be receiving treatment at the Mayo Clinic in the United States, based on the information that his party in Parliament and also outside of Parliament gave. So we know that at least his presence in the U.S. was recorded as receiving treatment in this Mayo Clinic. Now we see the special prosecutor providing possible countries where he could be located. Additional 5 of them, making it 6 possible locations of Ken Ofori-Atta in terms of their country specific. I mean, how does this get to you? I mean, looking at the expansion of the tentacles of the countries of search.
Definitely, there's something we do internationally, and we do it nationally and regionally as well. We call it the travel history or travel checks. And travel history and travel checks gives you an identity or an itinerary of people, particularly when they are high-profile persons standing trial in whichever capacity or whichever form. I believe that search was done, and I believe some level of risk assessment was also put into place to be able to project and to predict the likely places might be. Remember when the red alert is issued, the red alert notice is issued, he could surrender himself and come voluntarily, or there could be some other legal tendencies that may come up. And that is why the special prosecutor indicated that he will want to see him because they are the investigative stage, because he can also be tried in absentia. But there is a whole package of things that might have come in before some of these countries were listed. I believe there might be some other countries that they are keeping from the general public because investigations are still going on. By and large, Alfred, special prosecutor is looking for Ken Ofori-Atta. He triggered an option that is available to investigative agencies, and he's going to work with them in collaboration with all the other agencies across the group to ensure that they locate him and they bring him alive.
I appreciate your time on this one, Mr. Kumado. Thank you so much for joining us. Richard Kumado is a security consultant joining us here on Ghana Tonight. And the special prosecutor did not only talk about Ken Ofori-Atta today. Coming up next, still staying with the special prosecutor, is pursuing some officials and former officials of the National Petroleum Authority in what it says is a 280.5 million cedi corrupt scheme. And also, he gave an update on Cecilia Dapa and matters arising. Dennis Paweri, with Ms. Price, still with me. Dennis, what did the OSP say about these cases?
Well, so the OSP is back to the National Petroleum Authority again. If you do recall, the very first time he addressed this matter on the former finance minister, he did also indicate that there was a matter that we're investigating at the National Petroleum Authority. Then he gave 3 names as possible suspects in that particular matter. Now, today, he says that they've been able to trace some 28.5 million Ghana cedis in respect of that particular matter. Just to put this matter in perspective, the National Signals Bureau is in court over some 49 million Ghana cedis. This is about 6 times approximately 6 times that amount of money.
280.5.
Yes, and if you look at what he says as to what the money has been used for, it has the same semblance as we have seen in past allegations. So this involves some high-ranking and other officials, and he says that they are involved in what he says a corrupt scheme of using public office for profit. The details, he says, they'll come later because he officially prefer charges against some individuals. That's when we get to know who is responsible for what and who has taken away what. But he says there's a big one at the NPA. Also on the matter of Cecilia Dapa, you do recall that when the OSP pursued this matter, it got to a point that the OSP said the matter was not within his remit to do. He thought it was in the, within the confines of IOCO. That in his view, it was matters bordering on money laundering and structuring, for which he referred the matter to IOCO.
Sure.
The Attorney General then would advise IOCO that no, she should return, that's the executive director of IOCO then, return the docket back to the OSP because it did not have any basis. The explanation was that there was no there was no predicate offense for which the allegations of money laundering would lie, and also that when they requested for further documents and the findings of the OSP, they did not get seen. So that docket was returned to the OSP. Now we are learning that with the new administration, IOCO, under a new administration, thinks that there's something in that matter that they need to revisit. So they've requested for the docket from the OSP, and the OSP has handed that docket over to the OSP. So what we are now learning...
To IOCO, you mean?
Sorry, to IOCO.
I see.
So what that effectively means is that in the coming days, you also see IOCO begin to look into that matter of the Madame Cecilia Dapa's stolen cash, which included some millions of foreign currency, which raises a lot of questions. So that matter is not closed as many would have thought. He also gave an update on the Republic versus Charles Edubuahin. This is a matter that our court correspondent, Lord Edwasa, reported on Friday to the effect that the second accused person in this matter, who is in the person of Andy Thomas Owusu, is seeking a plea deal. Right. That is to say, he wants to go into plea bargaining with the prosecution, either for a lesser sentence, so that they don't even go to trial or that kind of thing. So that's by way of updates. But in the coming days, the OSP is under an obligation to give us a half-yearly report. That will now give us a breakdown of all the things they've been doing, including some other matters.
And it's a very important fact you put out there. And let's go back to Lawyer Martin Pebo, still with us. Counsel, I mean, getting to know now that the new administration of the Economic and Organized Crime Office, IOCO, led by Raymond Archer, has taken interest in the Cecilia Dapa stolen cash saga. Comes as some refreshing news for you, looking at the consistent interest you have in this matter, as many people as well.
Oh, certainly. Absolutely. Yes. It's good that Mr. Raymond Archer has asked for the file on Cecilia Dapa. It's good. I mean, it's good. It's restoring some confidence that, yes, we are going to get justice. I'm sure Gamanche, Kentucky Tech, which the second, will also be very happy to hear that Mr. Raymond Archer is taking the file back and he's looking at it. We are also once again in court. You know, we sued IOCO AG on this matter because Godfrey Dame had given a legal opinion that IOCO cannot investigate Cecilia Dapa because there's no predicate offense. That's to say that there's no proof what wrong she did before she got those colossal sums of money. And we said, no, there's no such law in Ghana. Our law is that if we see you with money that is beyond your means, we can investigate you for money laundering. That's the Money Laundering Act. Is it Act 1044? Yes, that's what the law provides for. So that's why we are in court. Yeah, it's good IOCO sees that, no, the advice Godfrey Dame gave when he was in office as Attorney General is bad advice, but we'll also be pushing it in court. Yeah, so that we'll get a formal legal decision from the courts that no Attorney General should ever give that kind of bad advice again to IOCO.
All right. Counsel, appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. Martin Pebo is private legal practitioner, joining us here on Ghana Tonight. We're going to go for a quick break. When we're back, Chairman Wontumi, finally out of custody of the Economic Organized Crime Office, IOCO, at least for the temporarily having his freedom. He's the man circled in there, mobbed by supporters of the MPP outside of the offices of Yoko. Stay with us. We've got details for you and some speeches given by some executives of the MPP. After this quick break, we're back. These were the scenes outside of the Economic and Organized Crime Office some few minutes, in fact. It was just over an hour ago when all of this happened. The Ashanti Regional Chairman of the opposition New Patriotic Party, Bernard Enchiboisiako, popularly known as Chairman Wontumi, has been released from the custody of the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, after successfully meeting the bail conditions. Now, the General Secretary of the party, Justin Kodiafrimpong, confirmed his release earlier this evening in an interview with the media, who also were stationed outside of the EOCO offices today. Take a look.
We have the man. Charlie.
All right, so you saw him there flanked by Brian Champong, the former Greek minister. He is the man who stood surety with his property, we understand, which has been confirmed, though. The details of it, his release was characterized by a jubilation of party supporters there, and then also Brian Champong, who stood surety with his property, 50 million cedis for Chairman Wontumi to be released earlier today after meeting all of those bail conditions. The details of it, as we do know it, and also with the supporters there showing solidarity for him and with him. A number of them, we understand, had come from the Ashanti region, the base of Chairman Wontumi, and then also where he is the chair of the party, that's the NPP. And then also, we did see earlier today that application that was filed by Gary Nemako to vary these bail conditions being withdrawn earlier today by Gary Nemako. He has been explaining that he indeed got in touch with the lawyer of Chairman Wontumi, that's Andy Apiakobi, on Friday, even before filing that particular application to vary the bail conditions. In fact, Andy Apiakobi had earlier indicated that probably if that application had not been filed, Chairman Wontumi would have been released earlier than today. Well, that application for the varying of that bail condition was withdrawn earlier today. And we do know that as of Friday, Brian Champong had indeed come to the rescue of Chairman Wontumi, promising, in fact, providing the details of his property to stand as surety for Chairman Wontumi to be released on bail. But because of that development on Friday, we got to know as well, and now today, it was indeed a matter of when he was going to be released, not if he was going to be released, because it was on record that indeed that bail condition had been met with the stepping in of Brian Champong. And also, we did speak to Andy Apiakobi on Friday, if you recall, on Ghana Tonight. Martin Esiedu spoke to him, giving details of exactly why his client had to still spend the weekend in the custody of EOCO because of that application. Now, today, he's a free man, as you see him circled in that white circle. But then, conversation is how the coming days will be like for him as well. So, stay with us here on Ghana Tonight, keeping an eye on how things are playing out with Chairman Wontumi and matters arising. There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your company. Join the New Day team tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and also on Sunrise 92.73 FM. Johnny Hughes and the rest of the team, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. On behalf of the rest of the team here on Ghana Tonight, thank you for staying with us. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.